Welcome back. Another Try&Fly. And it's in Prepared, not in X-Plane. And it is an airplane that we have in X-Plane. We have an excellent rendition of the Diamond DA62. An excellent rendition of that in X-Plane from Aerosoft. Really, really great add-on. So when Carenado came out with DA62, it is already months ago, then I kind of waited. And when we had one of those hefty Carenado sales, that's actually where I get most of my Carenado aircraft nowadays. I'm waiting for sale because you do get considerable reductions, usually when Carenado makes a sale. You usually don't get them when they're fresh out. So if an aircraft has just been released, even if there's a sale, you have no chance. You would have to pay the full price. But a couple of months, weeks, months, depending later, you will most likely get an aircraft much, much cheaper during a sale. And that is what I do. So I wait. I do not have to have it right away. There may be some exceptions, for example, the ATR. I wanted to have it, basically immediately because I was really waiting for an ATR. But in this case, I wasn't that sort of eager to have it. But again, I like the DA62 very much as an aircraft. I think it's an ingenious design. And as I say, when Carenado came out with it, or Alabeo, I'm not even sure. I think Alabeo did a DA42, and then Carenado, I think, does this. And I think the borders between Alabeo and Carenado are very shine through anyway, because they're selling it via the same portal. And basically, an Alabeo aircraft is sold by Carenado as well. So I don't think there are that much differences, and they are to about the same standard, I think. Therefore, it doesn't matter whether you have an Alabeo or a Carenado aircraft. At least that's what I understand. Yeah, so when they came out with the DA62, I thought, well, let's have a look and let's see what it is and how it compares also to my beloved Aerosoft on X-Plane. Graphically, we have the usual Carenado quality. There's absolutely no doubt from a graphic point of view, modeling and all that, this really is, as usual, pretty good. Yeah. Oops, you can see that here. Yeah, they done kind of reflection stuff. The shadows that they are a little bit crackly is the settings here in the simulator. Because I am on a less powerful PC here, my Prepared is running on an old rig, because I'm not flying Prepared that much anymore, so I'm not investing, and I don't want to litter my other setup with two simulators. So that's why Prepared is on a slightly older rig, which also means that I can detect when an add-on is too hefty on the resources of your PC. Because if it doesn't work with mine, although I'm running Prepared version 4, which has turned out to be pretty well optimized, and I'm really surprised that I can get the performance out of the system with a the 1050 Ti GTX 1050 Ti and my old 3.6 gigahertz CPU. All right, that is already amazing, and that is because Prepared has really optimized the use of the graphic card, for example. So the combination, although I can't get let's say the same wow power out of what I would have with my X-Plane PC, which is a pretty optimized and high-powered rig, I still do get pretty reasonable performance. Now there are some compromises, obviously, and the compromises are in the amount of anti-aliasing and the amount of details I can put on in the scenery, although they're relatively high, but I can see that at times I do get, let's say, limitations. And the other thing I need to be really careful of when I make videos in this setup is I need to watch the GPU usage, because if the GPU usage exceeds a certain value and jumps to 100%, then I either get stutters in the video, or I get stutters on the simulator, which amounts to the same result for you. You have stutters. And sometimes I can't see those stutters because the graphic card has compromised on the simulator to be fast, but then the OBS recording is slow. So there are aircraft that actually use so much GPU power, and I wonder why that would be, that I have real issues recording, and I need to do a lot of testing before I start actually doing a video in order to make sure that I stay under the 100%. An example for that is the ATR42 from Carenado, that for some reason uses an awful lot of graphic power. Although I'm going to make a video about it, although the graphical results aren't that thrilling, I personally thought. Anyway, this one here uses about 70% of GPU. So gives me a nice margin also for the video recording, and means that, well, unless, I don't know what happens when we turn it on, but I don't think that it will jump 30%. I would be very surprised. So for me, that is always an indication this aircraft is reasonably light on the resources, so should be playable also with a older, not so powerful rig, like mine, for example. The specs for my system you will find in the video descriptions, as usual. So what we see here is all this tidbit around it. So there is a menu, Shift 4 will open it for you. You can turn on the usual reflection stuff and instruments reflections. If you watch my videos more often, you know that I'm not a friend of these things because they usually do not improve the visibility. On the contrary, they can be quite distracting and they can actually make it hard to read. In the simulator, it is hard to read anyway, any instruments, depending on also the, let's say, the fidelity of the graphics and all that. And if you turn on reflections, very often, more often than not, they are actually taking away from the readability and make it even harder to read your instruments. The other factors are the bloom factor. I turned that down drastically because bloom effects also have negative effects on readability on anything that is lighted. So I usually turn that stuff off. Static elements, so that's that all. Let's take it away. And then you see all these doors, which you can close either with the Shift E and the number, or you just click here on these options. And I think the pilot door I didn't get. There we go. So, by the way, that's not me in there, okay? I don't look like that. Right, other windows that you will get is a Garmin pop-up for the PFD, a Garmin pop-up for the multi-function display, a keyboard for the FMS. I really wonder what this will look like. That's the options. Then an explanation of what you do get. Here you can actually set the aircraft for cold and dark, ready for taxi, or no action. All right. So I'm going to use cold and dark, and this way I have so Shift 6, Shift 7 brings another explanation, and Shift 8. And here is I'm not sure. I think that only comes up when it's needed. And I remember when I installed it, it went through this Navigraph database build-up. Thing is, there are some Carenado aircraft like the ATR where this does not work. You will see when I do the Try&Fly. I haven't yet resolved some problems with it. And then Shift 9 is an addition, because I use the Flight 1 Garmin GTN, and there is a reason why I activated it for this aircraft, because my experience with the navigation equipment of Carenado is not a good one. It's actually a pretty bad one. So I usually end up using the GTN for navigation, because after some time I'm getting fed up with crashing Garmins and inability to enter certain things. Yeah, so this is a Try&Fly. I have actually sort of just installed the aircraft. I haven't really tried a lot. So this is real Try&Fly. First time I'm sitting in there. I haven't really read the documentation, although documentation with Carenado is limited anyway. So I'm, as usual, going to try and, with my experience of simulators and of also remembering the Aerobask, and in X-Plane, I'm going to try and wing it basically and see, can I get on with it? Do I get real big problems? And if so, are these problems that I could have solved by reading the manual? Or are these problems that are basically bugs? Okay, that's what Try&Fly is all about. If you don't like that approach, you know, I mean, I'm not forcing to watch. It's just because sometimes I still get these comments where I wonder, so why are you telling me I should read the manual? You know, because that's not the point of Try&Fly. It's the try, especially in this video series. Right, so let's go into the aircraft. And yes, it's the usual good Carenado looks. Yeah, leather and stuff. I was a little bit... yeah, I didn't like the kind of scratched and old-looking interior at first when I looked at it. I have to say, though, that my graphic settings... yeah, I have to explain another thing. Since I updated to prepared version 4.4, I'm not on 4.5 yet. And I don't think I'm going to be in anytime soon, unless I have to. I have some issues with the graphic settings. I do get a lot of jittering lines, you know. And no matter what anti-aliasing settings I put on, and FXAA and all that, first of all, FXAA takes a lot of performance. On my rig, it usually drops by at least 8 frames when I turn that on. And I'm in the lower range of frames anyway. I'm limiting it to 30 frames. So I end up with 20. So FXAA is not really an option for me unless the aircraft is pretty light. So what I'm going to do is now I'm going to show you quickly what I have currently as graphics setup. FXAA is off. Anisotropic I have put up to 8, and the anti-aliasing is the almost last one. Stepping to 8 SSAA also takes quite a few frames, and I'm on 4K textures. So if an add-on has 4K, I want to see the 4K textures. And that keeps off, because if you turn it on, it will decrease. It not only may, in my case, it will decrease performance. And when we look at the flight, these are actually quite high, because during my Try&Flies, I try to see with high settings, how far down does the frame go? That's one of these many tests, because Try&Fly for me is also testing the aircraft. I want to see how badly does it react to high settings, relatively high settings here. Yeah. So can I use it for, let's say, something like an at location video where I really vamp up the amount of details so that we get the best of a scenery. And I need to know whether an aircraft brings me down to 15 frames because of that. And if I see a lot of stutters, because the airplane takes away a lot of the performance. All right, so that's why these settings are pretty high. I'm running with dynamic lighting, although I know, you see, bloom is actually, I usually turn that off, and run slightly higher brightness and saturation values, and I have PTA, the tweak assistant, where I do some coloring changes. So it's a bit, the rendering settings, the shaders, or as what they're called in prepared, I use PTA to enhance the look a little bit. And the bloom is something that can negatively affect your displays. That's why I'm usually having it very low or turn it off even. Yeah. And here you see we are not at 29 or 30. We are actually meandering around 25 because the settings are actually relatively high, and we are now in the aircraft, and we've compared to outside. So when we go outside, we're about the same. See, it depends very much on where we look, because when we look the other way, we look at the airport. This is sort of the end of the airport, so there aren't that many buildings. If I turn to the other view, we seem to have more objects behind us. There are some static aircraft and buildings and so on, and the frames drop partially, not always, you know. So this is and here now, for example, we are below 20. Now we are kind of stepping up, but we are meandering now between something like 24 and 19, 18. Yeah, and that comes. That definitely is the aircraft doing that, or I would say so. Let's use this view. So this is about the 25. So when I go back into the cockpit, yeah, we've dropped quite a bit. So that's, for me, that's important information, because that can have an influence on how and for what I can use an add-on. The more complex it is, and the Navigraph stuff in here in the displays are one of the reasons for complexity. The less I can use it for, let's say, high definition videos. So just to explain a little bit on how I do Try&Flys. And by the way, the same applies also to X-Plane Try&Flys. It's just that I have far more reserve and power on X-Plane. So it's harder for me to see when an aircraft is unnecessarily heavy on the resources, because I have a lot of reserves, and therefore I wouldn't immediately see it. It could be that other people actually have problems then with frames and performance in X-Plane, although I didn't have it, but that's just because I have such a big rig. But the prepared side, there I'm really running borderline, lower end, you know. And if it works on the lower end, you can be sure that it will work nicely on high-end setups, on modern setups. So enough about that. As usual, we need to fire up the aircraft a little bit. So the parking brake is here. Okay, I can see that not all my buttons. I haven't yet done the whole setup of buttons and so on. Let's see if my axis. All right, so my throttle axis is there. That's the de-icing. There's no axis. You turn that on or off. Okay, this is the rudder trim, if I'm correct, although they don't say anything, but I think it's the rudder trim. That's the elevator trim. See, yeah. I have a key. This is the fuel cutoff. And by the way, normally, because I had accidentally opened it before. So what you have here is the rest, the armrest. And if you click here, it opens up the keyboard. It's not very practical because you basically don't see the display. So it is like that in the real aircraft, and in the real aircraft, it is much easier for you to actually type. Although I would think this is not exactly ergonomic here. I can't imagine that it's really economic, because you need to look down, and you have this kind of strange location and angle of the keyboard. I'm not sure that that is really very practical. The good thing is we have Shift 3, so we can bring it out. Now, what I wanted to find out is, can I... you can open the whole armrest when you click somewhere else, not on the black spot. Then we have the auxiliary fuel pumps. Simultaneous use only, auxiliary pumps. Not sure if we need them for startup. Then there's a switch here which you have no chance no chance of knowing what that is unless you turn and you go down and you go back and then you can see that it is the intercom select packs and middle. It's actually modeled, but I'm not sure if it does anything. Okay, so these are the auxiliary pumps. I'm not sure if we need them. Kind of can't remember that I needed them because, let's see, we have fuel pumps here, by the way. So it could be that they have to do with the tanks, because if I remember correctly, you may actually have auxiliary tanks, and it could be that you use them when you want to make use of the auxiliary tankers, something like that. But yeah, I'm not quite sure. Try&Fly, okay? So I haven't read on it. Yeah, there's the, that's an interesting one. That's the seat adjustment, I think. Pedal adjustment, okay. So Carenado, maybe we don't have power yet. Let's turn it on. No, okay. So here's our battery, and you can see that the displays are somewhat bright. They do not appear as bright when you bring them out as 2D windows. Okay, here this is a mix of the bloom and the lighting setting. They kind of affect how the display look in the cockpit. And here is the Garmin. And normally now in the aircraft, we wouldn't really, first of all, the Avionics Master is off. I'm not sure that the navigation display would come on. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. I don't know. But my first take on this would be probably not. Chances are we have the primary flight display with some engine inset. I'm not sure if you can actually do this. Let me see, inset is probably only the navigational inset. Yeah. So you can have a little map here, and you can declutter it off. And these are primary flight display settings. So synthetic vision is in theory available, but you need to buy a not so cheap product. Not so cheap because the actual Carenado price is not that high, but you only get a, what was it, 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 1 year? I can't remember. You get a subscription free with the purchase price from Carenado, because this is offered by a external company. And what I haven't been able to find out is what happens when the free Carenado subscription period runs out. And I need to check how many years it was. A minimum 1, maximum 3, or something like that. Because that means, or does that mean then that your synthetic thing stops working, because it will then require you to have a subscription and to be registered with the company that does the synthetic vision? Or does it mean it will still work, but you will not get up-to-date data anymore? Because obviously synthetic vision also lives from getting updated. So that's a strange one, I have to say. And yeah. So that's, you get this under PFD. Here you can set up wind. We can have a wind display, can choose the options. I usually like that one. Back. Then we have the DME. We can leave that for the one. Then the bearing, no nav data. You can actually change a little bit how the HSI looks. Yeah, I usually like the 360. And we can have bearing 2, which is nav 2 at the moment. The altitude unit is HPA. We're in Germany. And you could even switch to meters. So that's actually quite nice. Standard baro. Well, in the simulator here, you can press B, and it will take the ambient pressure, which happens to be the standard pressure of 1013. And that means we are in at 1,300 and something feet, 70 or so, which is, I think, correct for the airport. That's a good thing. B usually brings you there without you having to know. That's the transponder. We're going to set the code. I'm just setting some code here. That's done, and then later on we can switch. We're currently on standby. Well, we can switch it then on or in altitude mode, and we could switch to VFR. The thing is with VFR, it I think puts in the, let's see. Yeah, it puts in the American VFR, but since we're in Europe, I think it's 7,000. So let's go back and enter my code again. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's it. So that's how you use the main options here. There is also references. Here you can actually get your reference speeds, and there's also a timer that you can start. And I think they are already usable. So VREF would be 95 for approach. V rotation is about at 78 knots. V1 86 knots and V2 89 knots. So you have the speeds. Now, to find out more and how you can affect this, or if you can change this, yeah, that would be something that most likely, hopefully, is documented. But yeah, as I said, I'm not going to go through all these details, just to show you. Now, in order to not work down the battery, what we should do is we should probably keep going here with the engines. So the first thing we need to do is we need to bring these out and close the stoppers, because that is to prevent you accidentally cutting the fuel from the engine. And in order to start the engine, we need to turn them on. I'm just turning them on both now, and I'm going to start the right engine first. Fuel pump on, master on, and then you press, and there's an automatic. This is actually like in the real aircraft. Usually they're diesel engines. All right. So I think you can turn off the fuel pump afterwards. Master on. Just press that button, and your engines are running. Pretty easy. Yeah. So in order to get power now, we switch the alternators on, and ice pump. So this is Annunciator Test. Yeah, we can do that actually. Let's see. Right and left click, by the way. So right usually, like here, right brings it down, left click brings it up. Okay. Didn't look like the annunciators. Did you see any annunciators tested? Nope, not really. Okay. Pump 1, pump 2, windshield, ice. So this is all anti-ice stuff. Okay. Now, I think usually you do the test a bit later, but there are these automatic test buttons. We do them when we are shortly before the runway. So this is a highly automized thing here, this aircraft, also in real life. So now let's turn on the Avionics Master, which we already had all the avionics, but I would think that then for the autopilot, which by the way is here, the controls, although when you open up the Garmin, yeah, no, so yeah, it's here, it's with the MFD. These are standby instruments, and you can put on floodlights and things like that. So one of the things I like doing is go to the time preview, as it's called. Okay, time preview, and then put myself here into the dark. Alright, and then we can turn on the various lights. So this is what this aircraft looks in the dark. I guess power, auxiliary power on. What's that? No, that is a dead switch. That's for the rescue system, I think, partially. Okay. Not sure how you turn on the rest of the light. I'm doing Shift L. Shift L. Okay. Is that it? Are there not more light switches? There probably are, but I don't seem to be able to find them. I'm pretty sure there must be also a main light. Well, that is the floodlight actually. So, floodlight, but from the panel, or what? Well, anyway, let's close this. And poor passengers, or maybe there are switches here. Let's see. There's something. There you go. There's the big switch. It makes it bright. Okay. The good thing about the time preview and prepared is I say cancel, and the whole thing is cancelled. So we're still in around 24, 23. So since we've turned on the displays, things have gone a little bit down again, a couple of frames. Okay, so pitot heat. Yeah, let's turn it on, otherwise I forget. Gear and fire test. Okay, there's a test button. It actually does work. That's the ELT. We can put this into ARM, emergency lighting. The position light we should have probably turned on already. Then circuit breakers and all that isn't coded. And yeah, a nice touch that some of these buttons are at least clickable, but let's put the defrost on and the cabin air on. So let's quickly see. Looks pretty sensitive. Don't know. We shall see. Let's see the rudders. They do work. Brakes. Yeah, now I've disconnected the park brake. Need to put it on again. Right. So my next endeavor will be to get that flight plan hacked in. And we shall see how well that works. I have not very good experience with that. How did that work? You know what? Shift 3. Shift 3 and then find a spot where you can move it. Right then. Echo. No. You know, that's Carenado, right? It didn't update the display, although it did the zoom, but it didn't update the display. So let's leave it at that for the moment. Now, let's go to flight plan. So what am I doing wrong? I don't think this is for the frequencies, right? So is it or not? Or maybe 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 do I need to press that button? I have the feeling that it does something. At least that's what it looks like. Okay, let's try it blind, because maybe it's again one of these Carenadoisms. No, it's not. And that is one of the things that I hate about Carenado, to be honest. You know, it's this kind of crap. This should just work. I should not be sitting here and trying to figure out how this stupid thing allows me to enter character. Maybe there's a way and I haven't found it. Yes, possible. But I shouldn't need to go through all this crap now in order to find out. I mean, what do we have a keyboard for if we can't use it? What is this thing down here which is obviously not doing what it's supposed to do? What am I missing? I went now to the next stage, so let's see. I mean, it seems to be, I don't know, it does something here, but I hate this. Let's see. That's Nav. That's probably for maybe the frequencies. Yeah, okay. So that's the frequencies. Here you can, yeah, here you can change the frequencies. You need to switch the focus, basically. And then you can use this button in order to bring COM1 over to here or something like that. Yeah. So PFD. I mean, we've switched PFD. We shouldn't really be changing anything here, but maybe it needs this. Thing is, there's no point. Clear. Let's go on the menu. Is there a menu page you can call up? Okay, menu, map setup, declutter, procedures, activate, select. Select departure. So MFD. Yeah, in theory you now have the scope. Can I use the normal keyboard? No, it wouldn't be as simple as that. Sure not. That would be too easy, wouldn't it? Any other trick? I'm running tired already of this. Okay. But since this is Try&Fly. Oops. Oh, yeah. No trivial objects found. Okay, go away. I tried with some keyboard stuff. Alright, so looks like this whole Navigraph and whatever have you stuff isn't working. So we have to come to my fallback. I have to come to my fallback, and that is we use this thing here. Departure. We're going via the Moco to Echo. No, sorry, that's wrong. we need to go Maya Moko to Whiskey because we're flying runway 24. Transition Mokop, and we're loading the... So that goes until Mokop. Then I'm going to go Procedure, and I'm going to go Arrival. ADN Epsilon. Arrival is the... yeah, we're going for... No, there's no arrival. I need to go for the... approach directly, and the approach is the ILS-24, and the transition is Mokop. Okay, the transponder obviously hasn't been changed. 1, 2, 3, 4. Enter. Load the approach. Okay, so let's have a look at that. So we're taking off. We're only climbing to about 5,000 feet this time because it's a very short round. And from Mokop we basically immediately go into the approach or arrival. No, not arrival. Approach procedure for the ILS. And that's it. So now next thing we need to figure out is what's the frequency for the ILS. Here, show information. By the way, I'm using my trusted tool here. Show information. Hang on. So arrival procedures, navigates, airports. No. EDNY, Friedrichshafen. Here's the runways. There they are. Heading 06, ILS 06, 24, ILS 24. Frequency is 111.9er, and the course is localizer 240 magnetic 240 111.9. So I go back here, I go onto the map, and actually I can switch here. So let's see, 111.9er is already in there. That's good. And when we look at the course, so at the moment the CDI is, I'm going to quickly turn the course. How do you do that here? Where's the course? Is this one here? No, that's the pressure. Yeah. 240, I'm already pre-dialing it, okay? But I switched the CDI to the GPS in order to make sure. So while we're at it, we can also change the heading. Oh. Yeah, 240. Be careful where you click, because if you don't see a plus or a minus, you are resetting your heading to the current heading, which is a practical thing to have, definitely. This is, by the way, the nearest airport, TMRF. So let's turn that off again. We have low fuel pressure. Aha, probably because I have turned off the fuel pumps. Could that be? Yes. So I need to keep the fuel pumps on. Right. Fair enough. So, I wonder if there is any way of getting this the flight plan put in. I'm going to save it. And what I can try is see if it is actually able to be loaded via the flight planner. Carefully, let's see. IFR, Friedrichshafen. I think it's this one here. Okay. Yep, that's it. Navlog. Okay. It doesn't say anything about the altitude. Cruising altitude. Yeah, we need to bring this down. Hang on. I can probably enter this directly. 5,000. Okay. Override the existing file. Yes. No, we don't want to be moved. So, does that show up here by any chance? No, why shouldn't it? Suppose. And I don't think there's a way of... is there a way of... What about inner knobs and outer knobs? You know, like this is... useless. It doesn't seem to take on the flight plans. Okay. You know what? Forget this stuff. I'm not going to bother with it. We're going to use the Garmin. That's just the way it is. Right, so finally we are ready. Don't get me wrong, but that is so typical for Carenado. You know, there's always something. Maybe it's something I have here, but the probability of navigation in Carenado to not work properly or to have things like that is so high. Every add-on I have issues of some kind, and I just don't understand it. And in X-Plane things are so easy, you know, and here with Carenado you don't know what you get, basically. That's one of the things with Carenado that I'm not really happy about. So let's see. Yeah. Parking brake off. And we have taxi lights. Let's turn that on. And we'll carefully move forward. You need to give it a bit of a push with the engines. I steer with the rudder. It's a bit reluctant to taxi. Need to keep a bit of power. I'm just checking the CPU, and the CPU is 99%. But that's the airport. That's not so much the aircraft. It's actually the airport and the surrounding, because I have pretty high detail level on. And you can see that the CPU is the thing that has to do the work, whereas the GPU in FSX, the GPU does hardly anything. It kind of gets bored. Whereas in Prepared, especially in the latest versions, the GPU does a lot of the work. Therefore, I have now about 70-something percent, 80% for the simulator, and another 10% for OBS. And that's, by the way, why I have to watch, because if the combination of the two exceeds the 100%, you will definitely see it in the video in some form or other. So we're about 20, we're meandering somewhere between 28 and 21 frames. As soon as we're in the cockpit, we're dropping to 20. Sound is, I guess, yeah, I have a pretty high sound setting for you. Sound is okay. Not sure if it's realistic, don't know. It's different what I remember from the Aerobus in X-Plane. But it's, yeah, it's okay. I think these are diesel engines, if I'm correct. So, let's get ready here. Let's quickly go to the stop point here for the runway. I'm going to turn off those lights because they look a bit odd. Although, there's like that. It helps a little bit with the readability. Right, now, park brake. Make sure you have the park brake. So it needs to be down here, the lever. And now, see this? These are the test buttons. You press them and it runs through a test regime. By the way, our fuel tanks are completely full. All of that is automatic, also where to take the fuel from and all that. Now, if I remember correctly, the aux fuel pumps are actually for some auxiliary tank, and I think you only use them when you want to get the fuel out of the auxiliary. We do the same thing for the right engine. And if this electronic engine control, engine whatever it's called, all fully automatic, when it is happy enough that the ECU, engine control unit or something like that, if it's happy, you didn't get any pings, warnings, errors, I don't know, which wasn't the case, as you can see, then we are ready. Now for takeoff, we are going to take one stage of flap, take off. 136 knots. We need to make sure that we have it in before we reach that. And showing you the thrust reference again. Our rotation will be at 70 something. 78. V1 is at 86. How can that be? It doesn't make sense. Just realize. That's idiotic. We can change this as well. At least here we could change something. I mean, obviously the rotation speed must be at least what V1 is. Looks pretty big. Okay, interesting. Minimums off. Baro. Radar. Here I can set the minimum, so let's do that. 200 feet. Enter. Enter doesn't work. Okay, so let's turn that off. Nearest airport. Just try that again. It's just let's see. So there's the upper one. There you can, in theory, is the outer ring, right? And then there is the lower one. And there you should be able to. So with the upper one, we should switch between. And here now we should be seeing characters. Something, right? But that's not what we see. Ident facility city. No. So it's not working. It's not working. Here's, by the way, system. Then we can check fuel. Oh, by the way, fuel. We can reset the fuel used. Gallons remaining. Yeah, so +1 gallon, gallons remaining. Okay, so I can adjust, obviously. There's a checklist. I have made very bad experience with this. This in older versions actually caused the whole thing to crash, so I'm not using the checklist, at least not in this video. I might try it later on, just to make sure that we're not crashing things. Okay, let's go down to the runway. So, by the way, the flight director we're turning on. We're going to use Nav Mode. And we haven't yet set the altitude. Time to do that. Going to climb to 5,000 feet. It needs constant push from the engines. So if you bring it down too low, the engines, I mean, then you just stop. Okay, so we have 5,000 feet set, and I mean, once it's rolling, it rolls actually quite happily. Okie dokie. So, shift 9. We're fine. GPS is set. That's important also, because otherwise the autopilot wouldn't follow it. And now I'm going to put on the landing lights and the strobe lights, turn off the taxi lights, and off we go. And I'm bringing the thrust levers fully forward, and I have trouble keeping it straight. So, now it's better. So we're waiting that we get out of the white area, 80 something. I think we can pull on the yoke. Positive rate, gear up. And yeah, 850 sounds okay. I'm taking back a little bit on the power, and I'm trimming down slightly so that we pick up some speed. And now I'm going to try and activate the autopilot. Let's see. Autopilot is on. Nav mode. Nav mode doesn't engage. That's not good. Heading mode. And vertical speed mode. Yeah, but nose up. So we're going to climb. I am still okay, but unfortunately now we don't seem to be able to engage the CDI. So this doesn't work well together, I'm afraid. Nose down. No, nose down, because we're decelerating. And I'm trying again to activate the Nav Mode. And it sure doesn't want to do it. Why should it? Can I activate it now? Aha, when it's on VOR, it does. When it's on GPS, aha. Now it appears to work. We shall see. We will know in a moment. Because in a moment it should start to turn. Direct 237 in 8 seconds. So we should be switching any moment. And yes, it works. Okay, so that was a little bit... We had to convince it of doing it for us. So where are we now? We're reaching 4,200. Claps in. Forgot about that actually. That's why we lost speed actually. Okay. Let's actually declutter this map. Alright, that's better. We're almost at 5,000. And I'm now going to let it accelerate a bit. So we reach 5,000. That's good. The gear is up. Is it? Hang on, no, the flaps are up, the gear is up, yeah. Everything good. Oh, I forgot the usual thing. Priority isn't high. That's actually something I cannot pre-program, so I need to do it manually. When the prepared process is not on a high priority, it starts getting washy textures. Uh-oh. Okay. We're still alive. Uh-oh. Yeah, it now needs to reload the textures. If I would have had it on high priority, it would have done this already. But now we're getting these stutters. CPU, by the way, is almost 98%. So we're using the CPU to its fullest. You can see how we still have slightly washed out textures. That's what you get on a low-end rig, unfortunately, with Garmin and Co. So I hope we're still following the thing correctly here. Oh, now I can't. What's going on now? Uh-huh. Oh. Oh, you know what? The CPU is so clocked down that our Garmin doesn't really work. So we should be turning in a moment. The thing is, see this? Oh. Okay, so that setting didn't work. It does not work really. It actually causes us issues. I go above normal. I take it back a little bit. And then hopefully that will recover this again. Oh, this does not look good. Ah, there we go. And because it was stuck, we didn't get... yeah, it's now following it. So we overshot a bit due to this. But it seems to follow it now. Oh, God. I can't change the course. Yeah, okay. What is this? Oh no. Oh no. What is it doing? Oh, this is not good. I think it yeah, see, it's stuck. So the Garmin has left me as well. That is not good. That is not good at all. Shoot. So not only does the Carenado not allow me to enter the flight plan in any shape or form, but the flippin' Garmin also acts up. So we're now flying completely wrong. This is not at all where we want to go. So I'm going to change now and I'm going to use the heading mode. Thing is, I can't turn off the Garmin, I think. Bugger. Come on. So I'm going to turn this crap off. I'm not impressed, to be honest, and now we can see the textures again growing. Yeah, not sure where that comes from, to be honest. I'm going to change the settings of the simulator again to high priority, and also giving it the affinity mask full. And I've set up the Garmin priority slightly higher in the hope that maybe going to be able to follow it again. See? It's still in heading mode. It has not switched to nav mode. Okay. Ah, yeah. I need to first go to this. And then I switch to this. And we also, what we need to do is we need to go to the flight plan. And DME 37. Okay, I just let it find its way. So maybe I have found the right, yeah, maybe I found the right settings now for the CPU and the Garmin simulator. Just to show you this, there's OBS, there's prepared, and there's also the Garmin something simulator, and I increased its priority as well because probably it did not get the cycles it needed. Here you can see the graphics with 60 something percent plus OBS with another 8%. The CPU, yeah, around 80 something percent. Yeah. Now, if I remember correctly, what might be is that we have a discontinuity. Uh-oh. Here we go again. Oh no. Do we have a discontinuity or will it go direct ATREM? I have to observe this. No. Okay. And the top of descent is soon. We need to get down to 4,000 feet. So I'm going to change the altitude to 4,000. And I'm going to use the vertical speed nose down. Do a very slight nose down. I'm taking away a little bit of the power. So we're now turning. I hope that the ILS is set properly. Where can I see the nav? There was a way of switching to the nav display. Ah, here it is. Standby. So we need to actually switch this. Enter. Enter. No. No. So we have to make sure that our ILS is in there. So it's now flying towards ETRM. And we need to be at 4000 ETRM. That is correct. So we should be at the extended line. Let's see. So PFD bearing. Yeah, we have bearing 1. Is nav 1. Okay, I think we have it already. So what we can do now is we can switch to vlog. I think we need to do this here as well. CDI. And now we go to approach. Localizer, glide slope. Okay, we need to get probably down now. Let's do away this thing. And yeah, we are too high. So autopilot off. And we need to get down. Unfortunately, we have missed the opportunity. We need to help it a bit. It took too long, so, and we're far too fast. That's a bit of a problem. Let's quickly reduce the speed in order to get the gear out. Yeah, that was a bit of a well, at ETRM we should have been at 4000, but then it took for me too long. I should have switched before that. I kind of missed the point where I needed to do that, and then we got above the glide slope. At least in theory. That's what happened. So flaps are full, gear is down. We're still a bit high. So I keep throwing myself towards the ground. Okay, I think we're getting there. 1 red, 2 red, 2 white. So let's reduce the descent rate to about 700 and something. So landing light is on, strobes are on, flaps are full, gear is out. We're descending a little bit too fast. We're now below the glide slope. Still. Something is pushing us. Why is it swinging so much? So now we need to... I don't know, like I have difficulties steering. See this swinging effect? It's a bit like a yo-yo here or something. Come on, stop that. Why is it doing that? No, no. Shh, yeah. Fantastic. What is this? Will you just go sideways now, or what do I need to do? We're a little bit far. But this is a small aircraft, a long runway, so I'm going to land anyway. Okay, there's no reverse or something, so you will use either the rest of the runway or the brakes if you need to. Okay, we're still at 30, so I'm going to let it roll out. Steering, it was no fun. I'm not sure what is wrong, but I didn't like it at all. It was really strange. Really strange. I'm not used to an aircraft doing this, because if you give aileron to the left, the aircraft banks and then it starts getting a new turn. What it doesn't do is that it swings back and forth and back and forth. That's not normal. I'm not sure why that is though. Maybe there's some setting with the rudder or so, I don't know. It's weird. Let's get off here. And then I tried to actually get it to rejoin the center line, and it just didn't do anything. I had rudders and aileron trying to shift it over, and it didn't react at all. Just at the end, and very slightly before we touched down, I finally got it to move over. Not normal. Not expected behavior, I would say, but I don't know. Maybe I have to change something in the settings or so. Could be. So, as I say, the ILS, we don't know now whether or not it would have followed it properly, because we had some issues. I took too long. I missed the point where the glide slope was actually coming through the center line. And when you're above the glide slope, the autopilot will not intercept. That's reality. That's actually like that. So that's not wrong. So what are these big red signs in the middle of everything? What's that supposed to mean? No entry. Oh, all right then. That means we need to get... Okay. Well then. Yeah, Navigraph, Garmin. I had really hoped that it gets better. It hasn't. It's still not working. And I don't know what it is. And I'm tired of having to read this up and try and find out, and actually find out that other people have the same issue, but usually you get advices like reinstall your computer and reinstall prepared and reinstall the aircraft and reinstall this and reinstall the other and don't use this and don't use the other. That's not the kind of advice I'm expecting if something doesn't work. So, I don't know. I basically have to start now again and try and figure out why can I not enter anything. And maybe the Navigraph thing hasn't worked. Maybe there's an issue with the Navigraph cycle. You know, but it's not what I want to look up and having to search for it every time I buy a Carenado aircraft. Yeah, I sound frustrated because I am frustrated. I had hoped that this time I do not have this kind of issue, but as it looks, I do the usual thing with Carenado in prepared, and that is trying to find where the problem is. And that shouldn't be the case, sorry, but other add-ons work flawlessly without an issue, at least not something like that. A2A, for example. But here we always chase after stuff like this. Okay, so let's get to the verdict. Let's first park brake on. And in order to turn it off, you need to lift up this here. And then you need to go and right click, left click, right click. Alright. Oh, maybe should have turned off all the stuff before. Fuel pumps off, lights off, tack, tack. Okay. Right. So the looks as usual with Carenado, very good. Okay. Probably, yeah. So the realism, apart from this whole navigation stuff, is, yeah, it is. Let's say it's on a medium to simple level, but allows everybody to just, no matter how much you know about aircraft and all that, it allows you to very quickly get onto the aircraft and do things. Okay, so it flies okay. The autopilot seems to work once it has been convinced. The fact that we couldn't follow the nav now has to do with the fact that we couldn't get a flight plan in there. There's no point loading a flight plan in FSX because this thing wouldn't take it. I wasn't able to enter a flight plan. So it's a pain in the underside. It's a real pity because it makes these good-looking and nice aircraft really less usable. Quickly bring in the flaps. Okay. Yeah. And, you know, I'm not associated with any of these companies. This is my own personal opinion. And the thing with Carenado is I have a real love-hate relationship with Carenado aircraft, especially in prepared. Because there's always something like that. There never is this experience where you sit in and you look at it and you say, great, yeah, everything works, fantastic. And then I can compare. I can compare with the Aerobus in X-Plane, which is really fantastic. Yeah. And here, you always, this is a downer, sorry, but if the Garmin doesn't work, this is a downer. And I don't know why it is, and I don't know why it always happens, you know. And I don't want to hear I have to set up my PC new or stuff like that. That's nonsense. You know, this is not a solution to anything. We should have probably turned off the masters too. So probably only here, you know, don't get discouraged. I mean, if everybody would have the same issues, they wouldn't have sold this airplane. But I don't know. I seem to have issues like that. Either it's the Garmin or it's in other aircraft, it's where we don't have the Garmin. At least I have the GTN, and the GTN basically allowed me to do this, but the GTN isn't foreseen here. In other Carenado aircraft, when they have normal GPS, for example, they allow you to switch this to the Flight 1 GTN, or now the Reality XP GTN for prepared. But in this case, because they've put in their own Garmin, yeah, you have no chance. So if you put it in, you've seen we had some issues because the autopilot wouldn't switch to GPS, probably because we haven't got a flight plan in here. So there are these little issues that make it hard to really like the aircraft, to be honest. Yeah, that's just the way it is. And candy like this, high candy like this, it doesn't really make up for it. Yeah. Can we not open the door? Oh. All right. That's also a simplification, probably. You press this door and the other one opens. Okay, so we can't get out here on this side. Ah, yeah. Only after you opened the other door. Good to know. In case of emergency, first throw out the pilot, then let the rest follow it. Okay, yeah, you've seen it now. As I say, it could well be that this is something that's only here, although I haven't yet found out what it is. Yeah, but it has made my experience with it not as good as it could have been, and therefore I leave this Try&Fly with a shale taste in my mouth and not sure what to think of the add-on. I will now do the same thing that I always do with Carenado aircraft. I will go on the forums and I will search and hope that someone has found a solution, that maybe it's another of these Microsoft runtime thingies that need to be updated again. Maybe it's something like that. Maybe it's Navigraph having issues. I don't know. Maybe I have to wait for another ARAC. Or put the old data in, which is useless too, because what do you want with a 2016 ARAC? When you have Navigraph, I don't know. I can't tell you. I have no idea what could have caused this. But my guess with the navigation is it could be Navigraph related. Yes, it is possible. And yeah, I will probably try and put in the old ARAC again somehow. Probably reinstalling the aircraft and overwriting my ARACs, and then try it out again. Maybe that helps. Maybe it solves the problem. I'll let you know. So when I find out what it is, then I will let you know. Okay, that's it. Thanks for watching, and until next time.